welcome. Perfect. Um, so please feel free to ask any questions, unmute yourselves, or ask questions in the chat whenever necessary. I would appreciate it if you guys would turn on your cameras just so I feel like I'm not talking to a blank screen, but if you don't want to, that's totally okay. I also want this process to be as interactive as possible, so volunteer if you guys can. The more you guys volunteer, the more you'll get out of this review. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so some very important instructions. Some students like to blow this over. It's already in your PDF. Um, I'm going to pay these instructions. Rena, can you hear me okay?
You were a little patchy.
Okay, is it better now or
Yeah,
no?
yeah, yeah, you're good now.
Okay, cool. So the first thing that I'm going to emphasize is your decimal place values. In the exam, especially for me, not only did they ask me, can you guys round to the nearest hundred? They asked me to round to the nearest tenth and the thousandth. So round all your answers to the nearest hundredth, but know your decimal place values. In the next slide, I did put a decimal place value chart just in case you guys need it for reference. You guys should definitely know your tens, hundreds, and thousands. I know it's common sense, but it's better that you know it for sure rather than second guessing when you guys are in the exam. When we're doing weight-based calculations, it's very important to do your pounds to kilograms first. And we're going to see that in the later questions. So that's always going to be the first step when it comes to those types of calculations. And when you're rounding it, so when you're turning your pounds into kilograms, you want to make sure that you're rounding it to the nearest hundredth, and then proceed with the later steps. So for example, if you get an answer that is 3.252 and they ask you to round to the nearest tenth, you're going to put 3.3. And if they ask you to round it to the nearest hundredth, it'd be 3.25. For questions that's drops per minute, automatically when you're seeing drops per minute, you want to think, okay, I need to round to the nearest whole drop. Because obviously, if you get an answer that's 31.5 drops per minute, you can't give that an exact drop. So just get into the habit of thinking, okay, you're seeing drops per minute, automatically rounding, okay? For commas, I know it's common sense, but just don't forget your commas. Don't leave trailing zeros. If your answer is 12.50, just put 12.5 milliliters. And then labeling your answer with the correct terms or units of measure. So that's your milliliters, micrograms, milligrams, whatever it is. Also, pro tip, make sure that you guys are looking at what's being bolded and italicized in the exam, because majority of the time that's our professors or just the exam itself telling you guys, hey, like this is really important. You need to focus on this. So, yeah. Another pro tip is that these questions are not meant to trick you. They're just worded very hard. So when you're reading the question, make sure that you're understanding what they're asking for and just take time reading it so you know what numbers to plug in and what formula you're going to use and such like that. Okay, so that's there if you guys need it. So quick little question, what are you guys struggling with and what do you need help with the most? Go ahead and put that in the chat. Pretty much everything in the PowerPoint that I'm going to cover is everything that you need to know for the exam. So I do want to take the time and focus on what you guys are struggling in. So you can unmute yourselves or just put in the chat. But overall, we're going to go through the whole presentation. I made the presentation so that we start with really easy questions. We get you guys' feet a little wet. We do conversions. You guys are familiar with that. And that's a foundational building block for the more complex questions that we're going to do later on. So,
Okay. People were
mhm.
commenting. A lot of people said BSA and then DTT and then grain to milligrams.
Okay, perfect. We're going to go over that in like the next slide. So, um, We are just going to do practice conversions first, and then we're going to get into all of that. So hope that's good. Okay, so I put the conversions here. This is all the conversions that you guys should need to know. So memorize it like the back of your hand. Um, what I like to do before the exam was just recall it like 100 times. When you guys are taking the exam, you can also write it on your piece of paper, but if you already have it memorized, then kudos to you. That's super good. If you don't, go ahead and take a picture of this because I'm gonna need you guys to refer it when we're doing conversions, just in case you don't have it memorized. So I'll give you guys a second to take a picture of it, and then we can do our conversions first. Okay, so we'll do one together, and then two and three, I'm gonna have you guys just do on your own and then put the answers in the chat. So for number one, 9 ounces equals how many milliliters? Can someone just unmute themselves and tell me what's the conversion for ounces to milliliters?
Oh,
30 milliliters?
doesn't 1 ounce equal 30 milliliters? So then we
Yeah.
would times 30 times 9 or no? Oh,
Yes, perfect. Yeah, so the answer is going to be 270. I'll show the answers in the end. So for two and three, I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes. It shouldn't take any longer than 2 minutes to do these problems. Go ahead and then do it on your own and then put the answers in the chat. If you guys need to review it, we can. I'll go ahead and mute and your time starts now. Okay, perfect. I saw the chat. You guys got it correct. So, can someone just unmute and tell me what is the conversion for milligrams to micrograms? Just scream it out.
One milligram is 1,000 micrograms.
Right. Okay. So, you guys
a
were, yeah, and you would just multiply that. So the answer is going to be 27,000. And then can someone just tell me the conversion for teaspoon to milliliters? I know you guys know it. I just want to hear you guys.
1 teaspoon is 5 milliliters, so you would multiply 7 times 5.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So those are the answers. Great job, everyone. Okay, so we're going to start off with basic dosage calculation. So we're starting off very easy. Does anyone know the basic formula that we use to solve a basic dosage calculation? Like everyone should know it. Does anyone know what that formula is? when we see a question that's asking for the order and what's available, and then what dose do we give or how much ml do we give? What formula would we use?
Can we use dimensional analysis?
You can use dimensional analysis. I was looking for more like desired over have times quantity. Are you familiar with that one? Yeah, so
Yes.
it's yeah, so that's the one. Usually that's you can use dimensional analysis though. A lot of the problems that we're going to be going through, you can use a lot of different ways. But I think just the easiest way when they're giving you an order and they're giving you a dose and then what milliliters it comes in, just automatically thinking of desired over have times quantity. So the order is morphine 1/10 grain, and what's available is morphine 10 milligrams per milliliter. So can someone tell me what is going to be our desired? What do we want? What's the order? So it's going to be morphine 1/10 grain. What I like to do for questions like these first is figure out what's the D, what's the H, and what's the quantity or the Q. So our D is going to be grain 1/10, and then our have or the dose that we have on hand is going to be 10 milligrams. And then the quantity, which is how much the 10 milligrams comes in, is going to be 1 milliliter. So now that we have all of that, we can kind of plug in all the numbers. So if we go to next, that's the formula. It's in red. If you guys don't know it, you guys should write it in your notes. If you know it, then kudos. But the first thing that we are going to need to do, what are we going to do with the 1/10 grain? We obviously can't use it when we're plugging in our values, so we need to convert it. So I already put it in the slide before. What is the conversion for grains to milligrams? You guys can just call it out.
1 grain equals 60 milligrams.
Right, so 60. So what we have to do, what is 1/10 of 60 milligrams? We just divide by times. It's going to be 6 milligrams. So after that, we just plug in all the values, right? So we have our 6 milligrams with our dessert, and then we have the dose that we have in hand,
Kristen, can you repeat that? You were cutting off again.
quantity, what was my wife is a little, yeah, I'm sorry. Kind of bad. I don't know what's going on with my wife. Sorry. Okay. So, like I said, we know what our desire is. We found it, which was 6 milligrams. So we put that there, we plug it in, and then we have the dose that's on our hand, which is 10 milligrams, and then the quantity, how much 10 milligrams comes in, which is 1 ml. And then you do all the math, and you should get 0.6 milliliters. I think it was Gabriella, you can use dimensional analysis. That's for sure, whatever is best for you. But yeah, is everyone confident in that? Did that make sense to everyone? Just give me like a thumbs up or an emoji if you got it. Yeah, I'm gonna take that as a yes. Okay, thanks. Okay, so these ones I'm gonna have you guys do on your phone. I think give you about 3 to 4 minutes how long it will take to complete that when you guys are done. If we need to go over it, it's definitely can. And you guys' time will start now. Okay, we can go ahead and do these 2 problems and then we can go ahead and switch over. Is that good? You
I think skip over them and then we can come back in the next Zoom if we need to go over or people have questions.
Oh, you want me to skip this?
Yeah, we have 10 minutes left on this one. and then we can join another one and go over like more practice ones, but just to get to the BSA and everything that people want to go through on one Zoom.
Okay. Okay. I mean, it'll take like 3 to 4 minutes for them to complete.
Okay, that's fine then.
Okay. I'm gonna just have you guys go ahead and complete the questions and then just put it in the chat. And then if we need to switch meeting rooms, then
I have a question regarding the exam. Is it going to be like multiple choice, or do we have to enter like the amount with the
yeah,
it
with
is
the unit of measure. Mhm. Majority is you're gonna have to fill it in yourself. Yeah, I think that's right. At least from what I remember. If Karina or Annabella, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's all fill in.
Yeah, I remember a lot of fill in the blank and a lot of like how Kristen emphasized of like actually reading what they want you to have, because I know a lot of people got the right number answer but didn't put the right decimal place or didn't put the unit, so they had to retake it. So just read the directions really carefully.
Yeah, great. I'm gonna give you guys about a second, putting your answers.
the whole drop. That's the only one that we round up to the whole number, correct? Okay, the other ones, because on the sheet that they gave us, they told us to round to the 100th, and most of them I did, but then they put like the whole number, but it's milliliters per hour and not
Yeah. The
minute.
PDF they gave you guys and the answers, I don't know, because there's a link where it gives you the answers. Um, yeah, I don't know what, but just the exam. When we're talking about the exam, just run to whatever they tell you. And it will specifically tell you like in italic or in bold, like you need to round to yours, blah blah blah. So don't worry about the ones on the PDF that they gave you, because yeah, it's a little wonky. But other than that, just whatever you get on the exam, make sure it follows that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so everyone got the answers right. It was one. oh, So the answer was 1.5 tablets and 4 ml per dose. So you guys are right. I do want to point out this thing though, because when I was practicing, the BID and the TID would always get me confused. So when you guys see in the exam, try not to let it distract you. The only time that QID, TID, BID is important is when they're asking you, hey, how many milligrams are they getting per day? Then that would be important. If they're asking, okay, for example, if you're giving Tylenol 100 milligrams and you're giving it QID and they're asking you, hey, how much are they getting per day? Then you would do 100 times 4, and then it would be 400 milligrams. But I don't think you're going to get a question like that on the exam. However, when there's a question that's like, they're giving you 1,500 milligrams PO in 3 divided doses or 4 divided doses, that's important because they're saying because a lot of the questions are going to ask you, what are they getting per dose? So there's going to be a question like that in the later questions, but I just wanted to point that out for now. Okay, so we can go ahead and move on. This is the BSA. So does anyone know I don't think you need to know the BSA formula, like how to figure out the BSA, but you should know what to do when you get the and then you have a usual dose. So does anyone know what that formula is? You can go ahead and say it out loud, or you can put in the chat.
BSA, or I guess child's dose equals 1.2, which is the BSA here, over 1.7 times the adult dose.
Okay, so yeah, the formula would be the child's BSA, which is always going to be an M squared, right? And we're going to multiply that by our usual adult dose, which in this case would be 25 milligrams. And then we divide that whole thing by 1.7 M squared. Okay, so the question's asking, give Phenergan to a child whose BSA is 1.2 M squared. The usual adult dose is 25 milligrams. So the only thing that you guys really need to know is the formula. The rest is floating from there because you already have the values. You just need to plug in everything. So I'm going to go to the next one. This is the formula. If you don't know it, go ahead and take note of it. If you know it, perfect. So as you can see, I kind of just plugged everything in. And then your answer should be 17.64. I didn't add any practice questions for BSA. Karina, do you have any practice questions? Or because I thought it was a bit easier because it's all plugging in. It was just
I remember it being the BSA was given to you and then you just plugged it into that equation.
Mhm.
I can try to find one or two that have the height and kilograms or the height in pounds. But
Yeah.
I think we on the last slide we have links of practice problems and those also have kilogram and height problems in that link. So but I can find one.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. So, whenever you're given like an easy BSA and a usual dose, you're just plugging in numbers. So I didn't put practice questions, but there is going to be a link at the end of the PowerPoint where you guys can practice it. Okay. I am going to move on though. Can you guys give me a thumbs up though if you guys are confident in this? Really, it's just knowing the formula. Just make sure you know the formula for this. Yeah? Okay, cool. Okay, now moving on to pediatric dose weight base. So these questions, they have a lot more steps, and that's when it gets kind of confusing because there's a lot of conversions that you're going to need to do. So like Karina said, you guys need to make sure you're reading the question very carefully. When you're doing a weight-based dose, you can use dimensional analysis, but it's just easier when you're using the formula method. Whenever you see a 45 milligrams per kilograms per day, whatever, something like that, it's most likely going to be like you're going to use formula method. So I'm going to read the question. Give Seclor 45
I'm gonna
milligrams.
cut you off, Kristen, because we
Yeah.
have like less than a minute left.
Oh,
Bella's
sorry, yeah.
making a new Zoom right now. I'm gonna
Mhm.
post it on the Instagram, link it, and put the password once it's there, and then you guys can all join that one just because we don't really have anything else. If you can't make it to the second one, I will also be recording it, and I can send over or have PR send over the recording and this PowerPoint once we're there. But Bella's making a new one right now, so if this cuts off, I'll post it on the Instagram.
Okay, so this is where we left off at. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, so I hope everyone's good to start. I'm gonna go back on. Okay, so I'm gonna read the question. It says give Zachlor 45 milligrams per kilogram per day, PO, in 3 divided doses. So remember when I said that whenever it says 3 divided doses, that's very important because if you look at the question, it says how many ml would the nurse administer per dose? So just keep that in mind. For a patient who weighs 66 pounds, a 7 milliliter stock medication is labeled Zachlor 125 milligrams per milliliter. So what I like to do first is find out the desired, our have, and our quantity, and also because it's weight-based, the weight. So if anyone can tell me what is going to be our desired, what's our order? Does anyone know? Okay, so for our desired or order, it's going to be 45 milligrams per kilogram per day, PO, in 3 divided doses. So we're going to eventually convert that and fix it later, but for now, that's going to be our desired. Does anyone know what our have and our quantity is? Okay, so our have, the dose that we have on hand, is going to be 125 milligrams. And how much does that go into? It's going to be 1 milliliter. So that's going to be our quantity. So we have our D, our H, and our Q, and then our weight is going to be 66 pounds. So I'm going to go to next. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is always convert your pounds to kilograms. That's the first thing that you're going to do. Always. The next steps that are following, it doesn't need to be in order if you're converting like the doses per day, or if it's like micrograms to milligrams, you can do that later. The first thing, it should be pounds to kilograms. So if anyone can just scream out, what is the conversion for pounds to kilograms?
One kg equals 2.2 pounds.
Yes, perfect. So all you really have to do when you're given a weight is if it's 66 pounds, you just divide it by 2.2 pounds. You can do dimensional analysis or ratio proportion, whatever helps you, but you can also just divide it by 2.2. When you do that, it should be 30 kilograms. The next thing that we want to do is finally find the weight-based dose and correlation, and then we got to add the kilograms. So we do 45 milligrams per kilogram, right? So we're just going to do 45 milligrams times what we just got, which was 30 kilograms. And you guys should get 1,350 milligrams per day. So that's not what we want still. We want it per dose. So now we have to divide it by 3 because in the question it said in 3 divided doses, right? So we divide that by 3 and it should be 450 milligrams per dose. It doesn't end there though. I know that a couple people would just end there and then they put that as the answer. That's not what we're looking for. That's milligrams. We're looking for milliliters. So that's when we would use our formula method, okay? So we have our D now, which we did all that work for. That's going to be 450 milligrams per dose. So plug that in. And then we have our have, we already figured that out, which was 125 milligrams. And then we have our quantity, which is 1 ml. So you do the math and it should be 3.6. Does everyone get that? Does that make sense? Because I think the next question that we're going to do, I'm going to let you guys do on your own, is a little bit more complex. So does everyone get the structure of it, the steps? Yeah? Okay, cool. I'm going to move on. Okay, so this is practice. You guys do it on your own. So there's a lot of steps. I'm going to read it with you guys. The order is dobutamine 4 micrograms per kilogram per minute IV infusion. The patient weighs 198 pounds, and what we have available is 250 milligrams per 250 milliliters. So I'm just going to point out, it says 4 micrograms. So that's one thing you need to convert. And then also the minutes. That's another thing you need to convert because we're looking for milliliters per hour. So use the same structure, use the same steps that we used, and then do the formula method, and you should find your answer. Whenever you're done, go ahead and put your answer in the chat, and we'll go through it together. Okay? I'll give you guys 3 to 4 minutes. Hi, Ani. Yeah, we just started this question. I'm about to answer it though right now. So yeah, don't worry, we'll walk through it. Okay, so Gabriella, you got the answer right. Thank you for volunteering and putting in the chat. Do you mind telling us how you got that answer? If you don't want to, that's okay.
I use dimensional analysis just because I'm so familiar with it.
Mhm.
So the first way I started a setup, the first fraction I did was on top I did 4 micrograms. On the bottom I did kg over minutes. My second fraction was 250 milliliters. The bottom was 250 milligrams. Third fraction I did 1 milligram on the top and 1,000 micrograms. And then I moved to the fourth fraction, which is 1 kg on the top with 2.2 pounds on the bottom. Then I move over to my fifth fraction, which is 198 pounds on the top with one, and the last fraction, which is 60 minutes on top with 1 hour. I know it's so long, but I'm just so used to it. And then that's how I
Yeah,
got
no,
21.
no, I like dimensional analysis too. Yeah. For some people it's like it's hard because I don't know, but some of my friends hated dimensional analysis, but great job. Yeah, got the answer right. So for people who don't use dimensional analysis, um, what did you guys do? Can I have someone else volunteer? Or I just hope that at least you guys answered it and got the answer right. So this was the answer, 21.6. Uh, 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 I'm gonna explain how, because it was a little hard. So it's backward, I know, but hopefully it's 198 pounds. Divide that by 2.2 pounds. You should get 90 kilograms. After that, you can start converting everything else. So I'm gonna cut off. Sorry if I cut off, but okay. And then we're going to convert the 4 micrograms. Obviously, we can't work with that, so we're going to convert it to our milligrams. So you do the math, you should get 0.004 milligrams. Now that you do that, we need to convert the minutes as well, see, because that'll give us per hour. So once you do that, it should be 0.24 milligrams per hour. The last thing is the kilograms. We didn't put the kilograms yet. So we do 0.24, you got that, times 90 kilograms, and then we should get 21.6. It doesn't end there because that's just the milligrams per hour. So then we would do the formula method. So we did all that work for our D, right? So we didn't plug in any numbers yet into our formula. So D was 21.1, so we plug that in there. Our half, the dose that we have on hand was 250. So we put that there, and then the quantity would be 250. So those end up canceling out, and the answer becomes 21.6 ml. So hopefully that made sense to everyone. Um, Jahira. Yeah, so dimensional analysis, or like these with the weight base, there's just a lot of that's why it's very precise, but I suggest that you guys do a lot of weights, noticing the little tricks that they are doing on you. So inside the exam, they're definitely gonna put like some micrograms and they might put minutes. So just watch out for those, make sure that you convert them and don't forget about them. So yeah, we can go ahead and move on. Okay, IV flow rate drops per minute. I'm gonna have one of you guys just call out. Do you guys know the formula for drops per minute? How do we get it? If not, that's okay. But yeah, in the chat or just unmute yourselves. What's the formula?
Kristen, I think you're glitching out again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it okay now?
You're good.
Okay. So let me check the yes. So volume to be infused multiplied by the calibration over minutes time. Good job. So thank you, Ani. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. It's really just again pulling all the numbers. So I'm going to read the question with you guys. 1 liter normal saline to infuse over 24 hours using a micro drip. So I don't think they're going to put this in the exam like the micro drip. They're definitely going to give you an exact calibration. So it might be 60 drops per minute, or it might be 15 drops per minute. They'll tell you. So, but just in case, micro drip is going to be 60 drops per minute. Okay. So we have our 1 liter normal saline that needs to be converted into milliliters over 24 hours. This to be converted into minutes, right? So I'm gonna press. Okay, so here's the formula. If you don't know it, just write it down. If you know it, then great job. And then we're just plugging in all the numbers. So we had the 1 liter normal saline, put it in there. And then we had the calibration, put it in hours. I think one of my friends messed up on that last year, so just make sure it's in minutes. So once you do the math, you should get 41.66. And again, whenever you see drops per minute, you are going to round it to the nearest whole drop. This is the only one where you do that. Okay, so it should be 42 drops per minute. Okay, I have this practice question for you guys. Is 300 ml of ampicillin sodium, 500 milligrams to infuse over 40 minutes. The drip factor is 20 drops per milliliter. So that's how it might look like in the exam. They're definitely going to give you the drip factor already. So go ahead and take your time and put it in the chat when you guys are done.
What? What is it? I don't know.
Okay, give you guys a couple seconds. Thank you to Ani and Gabriella. You guys got the answer right. Yes, Miranda as well. Great job. So all it was 300 ml times 20 drops per milliliter. Divide that by 40 minutes, and you get 150 drops per. Um, so great job. one? Okay, so this is IV flow rate practice. These are pretty self-explanatory. Um, really is it you're just finding out really. So you do milliliters over hour, and then you divide it, and then you get your answer. So I'm gonna put your answer in the chat when you guys are done. I'll give you guys 2 minutes.
Oh, just kidding.
Sorry, I need to fix my Wi-Fi. I don't know. I apologize. Okay, I give you guys like 1 more minute to complete questions. Yeah, just put your answer in the chat. Okay, so here are the answers. Yes, so Gabriella, it would be 50 ml per hour. For these ones, you wouldn't round it to the nearest whole. So if it's a decimal, just leave it, and then just in the oh, it's gonna end in 10 minutes. In the exam, they will tell you where to round it to. So if it's a decimal, just leave it. Honestly, just put, for now, just do to the nearest hundredth. But yeah, hopefully you guys got that. Karina, let me know when you want to switch over. Yeah. Ah, okay, so hold on. Okay, so now moving on to IV completion time. I believe they're gonna ask a question like this. So I'm gonna just go over it and then I think we'll have time for practice one for this meeting. We'll see. So
I think if we
Mhm.
just go over them quickly, we can get through everything, and then we can make another one in case people have questions. Because they'll get the extra practice problems anyway. I'm gonna have PR send all of this out, but up to you.
Okay. Okay. Um, okay, I'll just do for IV completion time. So at the change of the shift, you notice 200 milliliters left to count in the IV bag. The IV is infusing at 80 ml per hour. How much longer will the IV run? So you'll see that in these types of questions that there is really no formula that you can use. You can't, obviously, there's like no order, there's no available, there is, but the question that it's asking is how much longer will the IV run? So you can use ratio proportion, which is the one that I like to use, and I think it's most easiest. So they're already giving us a ratio to work with, which is 80 ml per hour, right? So we have 200 ml left in the bag. We want to know how much longer that's going to take. So we'll just do the proportion, which is going to be 80 ml per hour, which is equal to 200 ml over X hour, because we don't know. So you do the math and you would get 2.5, which is 2 hours and 30 minutes. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Okay, so I will do the practice and the other one. So, okay, continuous heparin infusion. If that made sense to everyone, but I'm gonna move on, okay? So for continuous heparin infusion, it's kind of the same idea. They're looking for the hourly dose of heparin that the patient is receiving. So the patient's heparin is infusing at 20 milliliters per hour. So we know that 20 milliliters is going in every hour on an infusion pump. The bag of fluid is mixed with 20,000 units of heparin in 500 ml D5W. So it's the same thing. We can use, believe ratio, yeah. So we already know that 20 ml is going in, but we don't know how many milliliters. So that's going to be our X. Then we use the ratio that's given to us. And when you're doing ratio proportion, you want to make sure that the numerator units of measure and the denominator units of measure are matching. So you have units, units, milliliters, milliliters, right? So you would solve for X and it would be 1,120. Okay. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to move on. There are going to be practice questions in the next one. Okay, now for calculating dose per minute or dose per hour. So for questions like these, I think you can use, let me check. Yeah, we're using the formula method. So our order that they're saying is going to be 40 milligrams per hour. We just need to find the milliliters, right? So whenever we're finding how much milliliters we need to give, that's going to be our formula method. So when you're finding the milligrams, that's most likely going to be a ratio that you're using, ratio proportion. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, we're all just plugging in the numbers. So we had our desired, which was 40 milligrams, times our half, the dose that we have in our hand, 250 ml divided by our, 500 milligrams times our quantity. And then you would get 20 milliliters per hour. Okay. And then this one, I think this is a weight-based calculation. So we have give propofol 10 micrograms per kilogram per minute. The infusion is mixed with propofol 250 milligrams in 250 ml D5. The patient weighs 168 pounds. What rate on the infusion pump will deliver the right dose? So again, it's important to read the questions because this is asking for the ml per hour. So first things first is if you want to do dimensional analysis, go ahead and do it. But if you don't know how to do it, you can follow these steps. So first thing, convert your pounds to kilograms, divide 168 pounds divided by 2.2, you get 76.4. So in the beginning, it said round to the nearest hundredth. So you can do 76.36 or you can round it to 76.4. I think just make sure that you're rounding it at least. And then we're going to calculate how much is going in each minute first. It could be you can convert it to micrograms first or minutes first. It doesn't really matter, just as long as you're converting at the end, that's all that matters. So we do 76.4 kilograms times 10 micrograms, which is going to be 764 micrograms per minute. Now we're going to calculate the hourly rate. So we're going to just do that times 60. Now we have 840 micrograms. And then lastly, you can convert it to milligrams. So you see how everything is being converted. So those are all the steps. That's why it can get kind of confusing. So at the very end, you need to find your milliliters though that you're giving every hour. So still do your formula method. Don't forget about that. Plug in all the numbers and you should get 45.84 milliliters per hour. Okay, this is one of the last ones. So you have a lidocaine drip that's infusing at 30 ml per hour on an infusion device. The drug is mixed 2 grams in 500 milliliters D5. How many milligrams per minute is the patient receiving? So this is a little different. They're asking us the milligram instead of the milliliter. So I believe we're using ratio proportion. So whenever they're asking us how many milliliters, we're going to do formula method. Whenever they're asking us, hey, how many milligrams, we're most likely going to do ratio proportion. So we know how much is going in every hour. So we have 30 ml, but we don't know how many milligrams is in that 30 ml. So we use the proportion they gave us, which is 2,000 milligrams over 500 ml. And then we use the other ratio, which is going to be X milligrams over 30 ml. And then you should get 120 milligrams per hour. So again, read the questions carefully. It says per minute, it wants per minute. So we would just divide that by 60 and it would be 2 milligrams per minute. Okay, so 2 minutes left, cool. So we are going to hit on the practice questions. If you guys want to focus on them, we can in the next meeting that we go to. But if you want to practice more, here are some links. This is all to registered nurse RN's quiz banks. And yeah, it's everything that we covered. I highly recommend doing it. I did it, my colleagues did it. It helped a lot. Just making sure that you're getting in the habit of all the different types of questions and how to read the different types of questions. And also, if you can, try to time yourself. Pick different questions, maybe 10, because that's how much is on the exam, and time yourself. Try to get as much done under 10 minutes or 11 minutes, whatever's your goal. So yeah. And then here, I know that they opened up dosage calc for you guys. They did that for us, so hopefully they did it for you guys. If they did, you don't need to go through all these modules. But if you have time, maybe just go through the practice review questions that is in all of these modules. And yeah, so I think we can go into the next meeting.
We're just gonna end this one and then just join back like you did before.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.